and he got beat.
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave from thedarkstuff.com and the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Welcome to my new video. I have a very special one for you this week. So last January, I made a video about a record called She Steals Candy by Juniper, a teenage girl from New Jersey who made a fantastic indie pop record with great original songs and covers from artists like the Bangles, Kiss, and the Go-Go's. I was absolutely blown away by it, and I played it a ton on my radio show. The band Juniper is actually Juniper Shelley and her father Michael Shelley, a longtime DJ at legendary radio station WFMU. She Steals Candy is actually Juniper's second full-length album. Both albums feature guest musical contributions from members of the Mekons, Belle and Sebastian, Yo La Tengo, the Smithereens, and many other indie rock luminaries. The late Kim Shattuck of the Muffs contributed 2 original songs to Juniper. Both were co-writes with Lisa Marr from Cub. The album is a strong contender for Album of the Year without question. Juniper has just released a brand new single called I Was Thinking About You. It's a fantastic, quirky, and wholly original pop song that's backed with a new version of Ride Between the Cars from the last album. I wanted to do an interview with Juniper to promote the new single and to give myself another reason to talk about the She Steals Candy album. Juniper's now a college student, so we figured out a day where she would be back home so I could interview both her and her dad, who I've given the title of musical director of the group to. We talk about both Juniper and Michael's musical histories, share some anecdotes about the making of the 2 albums, and talk about the future of Juniper. If you haven't heard any of Juniper's music yet, it is available on the streamers, on Bandcamp, and physical copies can be found at junipersongs.com.
She can walk, she can talk, and I don't know.
First off, I just want to say that, as you know, based on my video from earlier in the year, a huge fan. I mean, I love this CD. I play it all the time. I'm currently just shuffling all your tracks on my iTunes right now behind me. So I get both the albums and the single and all of that in there. So I had a really strong reaction to the record, and it's something that Michael, you might be able to relate to. Juniper, you're in that age where music is still very like exciting and everything. And when you get a little older, you got life to deal with and stuff. So sometimes music's not your entire world like it is when you're in your 20s or whatever. But this record was the first one I got excited about in a really long time, where it was just like, wow, like I felt compelled to make a video after it was just like, I just want people to know about this, even if nobody watches.
Thank you so much. That's so nice of you to say.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And actually, from that video, I had someone else reach out to me, the guy from the Anderson Council who wrote one of the songs on the record, and said, hey, I saw the video. I wrote such and such a song on the record. And he goes, can I send you my band? Yeah, okay. So then I started playing that. And my question was, which is the cover, actually, considering he wrote the song, but you recorded it first.
I don't wanna go to a record store, but I'll take you if you wanna go.
I don't wanna go to the record store, but I'll take you if you wanna go.
And then his version came out later. Which is the original? Which is the cover?
I think, if I've got the story right, that he and this lady named Dawn Eden Goldstein wrote the song for Juniper after hearing her first album. They wrote specifically for her. And it's kind of a long story, which I'll tell short, is that the Anderson Council guys had recorded a version for their upcoming record and sent it over. And we started to put Juniper's vocals on that exact same version that was going to be on their record. But then we ended up changing the drums, the bass, the guitars, and we added keyboards to it. So interestingly, the bass on the Anderson Council's version and on Juniper's version are literally exactly the same. The rest of the track is completely different. And ours came out first. So
yeah, that's why I'm saying yours is the original, theirs is the cover. Regardless of who wrote it, doesn't make any difference. So I guess let's jump right in. So, when your first record came out, Juniper, you were 14, so you're obviously in high school. Now you're in college, so your world is very different. First of all, how's college going?
It's going great. Yeah, I just finished my first quarter, so really well.
Okay, that's good. Because it can be pretty overwhelming experience. I traveled all the way across country for college for me, and it was a massive culture shock. And I wanted to go home after like a week. Also, my dorm was like a prison, and it was very, unrelated stuff. But that was the 80s. So it says in the information about the new single that in college you're singing with like an a cappella group. So is that your current musical outlet, for lack of a better term? I mean, is that what you're doing musically primarily?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at home when we were here, I didn't do anything with my peers. All my music was with my dad and with people in his age group more so, which was really fun. And so now it's been fun to do sort of a different thing, and it's such a different experience and also great.
Yeah. So is your life like those Pitch Perfect movies now? Is that what it's like?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's my only experience with a cappella, is seeing the movie. I don't really know anything about it, that world, other than the movie. I don't know how accurate that is,
We're not nearly as good.
No, not
A
nearly
couple
as good.
weeks ago, I went up there. They had an event called Puke, which was, I think, 7 of the campus's a cappella groups, each doing about 3 songs. And it was amazing. It was just mind blowing to see so much creativity and just singing. And like you, I had no experience with that world at all. It was cool.
Is it mostly contemporary music that you do, or standards, or how does that work?
There's a lot of different groups. There's 10 groups on campus, and they all have a different theme. Mine is nostalgia pop in my group, but there's one that kind of does older jazzy stuff. There's an all Disney one. There's a lot of variety.
Now, when you're roaming around campus or whatever, just minding your own business, has anyone recognized you from your CDs or from your other music career, or are you just completely under the radar there?
Completely. No one, listeners yet.
No one yet. Okay.
I was driving my car and I missed the light.
Start with the new single. It's called I Was Thinking About You. And it says it was inspired by you listening to Harry Styles, or you presenting your dad with a Harry Styles track or something like that. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've never even heard Harry Styles. So if that's what Harry Styles sounds like, then I'm into it, because that's like a really unique kind of pop song. I was playing it in the car, and a friend of mine was like just amazed at all the little weird sounds coming out of different sides and everything. He was like, this is such a strange arrangement. And I was like, yeah, this is the new, Juniper single. So how does it mesh in with Harry Styles? Because I'm ignorant of his music, to be honest.
Question. I would say it isn't very similar to Harry
It isn't
Styles,
very similar. Okay.
but I'm glad that you were able to find inspiration.
It was definitely inspired by Harry Styles, and I don't think I've ever asked Juniper, did the end product ever show that inspiration? I guess the answer is no, 0.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
I think it's cool with Harry Styles.
Juniper listened to Harry Styles a lot, and like you did, I never really listened to it. And she not made me, but hanging out with her, listened to a few of his songs, and they're a little bit like what you described about this song. They're a little bit more unusual than I thought they would be. Like the arrangements, and there's some weirder ideas, and there's some like twisted classic pop ideas in his songs that I was not expecting at all. I mean, this is kind of shows how dumb I am, but I just expected like a male Taylor Swift. Sort of like,
I would have thought it would just be very streamlined and boring, but I actually have heard from people that are like, no, he's actually like very, very talented and does some unique stuff. I just haven't had the opportunity to hear it.
So we ended up, long story short, she found a song that Harry had never recorded that I loved. We recorded 2 versions of it, which we can't put out until Harry puts it out. But this song was written with the idea of being the B-side to that, something that would match it. So that's just the inspiration. And yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So any other new artists that you're digging right now? What's on your iPod or iPod? That's an old term. Sorry. What's on your phone or whatever however you listen to music? What you've been listening to lately?
Right now, I've been listening to a lot of Hozier, new album. A lot of Zach Bryan, new album. I listen to a lot of Camp and the Lumineers and that kind of thing.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Flew out my seat. Got whiplash on the bumper cars. Rode the whip and I saw.
Now, your first album, which came out in 2020, was a self-titled record. It seems like that one weighed heavier on original compositions, whereas She Steals Candy was a little bit more weighted in terms of cover songs. That my general impression. Now, Michael, are the songs that you write for Juniper, either album, stuff that you've had like, in the can for a while, or did you bring brand new stuff to the table that was sort of inspired by, hey, I'm working on this project with where the origin of the original songs come from?
Well, in my younger years, I made a bunch of records and toured around and, put out some records. And when we had the kid, I kind of slowed down. It didn't stop entirely. And I was working on some recording music in our basement when Juniper was 5 or 6 years old. And she said, "Can I sing a song?" And so we recorded a Christmas tune. And it was just something silly. We sent it to the grandparents and stuff. And then we did it the next year and the next year. And eventually, when she was 13 or so, she said, "Can we do a non-Christmas song?" And I said, "Okay, and Juniper's always been a person who's always sings at the dinner table and walking down the hall. And she always sing. And so I thought, okay, what would a middle school girl singing a song today be like? And I thought, it'd be like that song, Boys, 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 Boys. I was like, that's what it would be like. It would, and so I wrote that based on what I, semi-wrongly thought, middle school was like for her. And
Keep you waiting, can't imagine why we're dating. Boys, 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 boys.
And that's how it started. So all of the songs were really inspired by her, and some of them us talking about what would you like to have a song say on this record or whatever. And she helped with writing some of the songs too.
So yeah, that was my next question. So the lyrics are sort of catered to fit kind of Juniper's personality, and then on the other side of that, Juniper, do you ever alter the lyrics and just say, "No way, Dad, I can't sing that. That's dumb," or whatever. That doesn't sound right. And then you kind of just change it.
There were definitely times when I sort of put my foot down on very certain things. I don't think it happened a lot though. Like I didn't want to talk about technology on the record because I think that's just such a like an adult perspective of how young people live now that
Right.
It seemed not realistic for me to talk about. But also a lot of it for me was trying to learn how to embrace the character. Of course, it's not necessarily my point of view, all the songs, especially on the first album. But just kind of learning, it's not exactly me. It's sort of me from an adult perspective, from a different perspective, which was fun to learn.
Now, is it weird? Like I've interviewed a lot of singers, and most of them also write their own lyrics and find it difficult to sing words, not a cover song, but sing words that they didn't come up with them, right? So they're inventing the way it's presented. It's not like they have a reference point of something else to say, well, this is kind of how you do it. Do you have that? Have you ever had that difficulty where it's like, okay, these aren't my words. I don't know how to really do it, or?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Not so much with the second album, but for the first album, for like Boys, 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 right? It's a great song. And also like, I like boys. And when I was 14, I was definitely interested in boys. So singing a very anti-boy song was like, what does this mean for me? Thinking things like that. But I think it's a good thought exercise, and it's been a lot of fun.
And for picking the covers, I think we went through like 100 songs, and she picked the ones that she related to.
Well, that was the other question. Was I wanted to know sort of the origins of some of the covers, because as you know, I flipped out in my video because there was Bangles and Kiss were both included in there, and I was just like, wait a second, like that. How do those worlds mesh in any other place other than my brain? Because typically it doesn't, right? So some of the songs, like where did you let's say like, okay, so let's start with the Kiss one. How did that come into the world? Because not only is that it's weird for an indie-ish sort of artist to cover Kiss, but it's like an obscure song on side 2 of a solo album from one of the guys, you know, and how did that song enter into the picture?
And I'll see you tonight.
Well, big picture, we have in the kitchen a boombox that has a thumb drive that has about 8,000 songs on it. And I add to that every few months. And my wife and my daughter and myself, those songs are very much in the vocabulary of what we all know and sing. And I think a lot of the songs that are kind of imprinted in Juniper's brain, for better or worse, are from that thumb drive. And so I think all of these songs are sort of on that thumb drive. And so that was a song. And interestingly, because Juniper does not have the history with the songs that you or I would have, she is very objective about judging them. She just says whether they're a good song or not, has no idea whether it was a huge hit or an obscure side 2 solo album hit. She just is reacting to the song. You know, I was never a huge Kiss fan. I always liked sort of their more poppy stuff, though, and I always thought like they were sort of a pop band pretending to be a heavy metal band.
They tried to be the hard rock Beatles, but they didn't exactly succeed. Yeah. That's more Cheap Trick, just as an aside, but that was what their goal was, to be a sort of hard rock Beatles. So I get that sort of pop reference. And I always think that Kiss and the Bangles are sort of similar in a way because they have 4 singers. So there's not a main lead singer. All 4 of them participate. They all have very distinct personalities, not like a group personality so much. And the Bangles one was really the one that got my attention, because that song James is not even a single or anything. That it's a great tune, and I play that album probably still weekly, and I've heard it for 30 years, the Bangles record.
I think I should have known, but I'm feeling somewhat surprised.
Anything special affiliated with that song, or another just kind of shuffling up on the what do you call it, the hard drive or whatever that?
This record, I think the reason there's so many covers of it was kind of a COVID project, sort of. So we just wanted to look for something to do, sort of. At least that's how it started. And we had done the Go-Go's track for this Go-Go's tribute, and so I thought, well, what if we balance it with a Bangles track? And I love the Bangles, seen them live, and like I just love that whole album. And Juniper, loves that song. I think that the other song on that record, Tell Me, that was another possibility. But they're such great songs, and they should be covered. It's a number 1 hit song.
Now, explain the multiple songs from Delbert McClinton. Now, that was, I don't remember if it was 4 or 5 or whatever, but that was like a lot of songs from a particular. Right? Is that like your personal favorite?
No, it's kind of insane. I mean, those songs he recorded in like 64, 65, 66 in Texas. They all came out on 45s, never on an album. They were not hits anywhere. And it was him just kind of imitating the Beatles. I think he had been on tour playing harmonica with Bruce, Hey Baby, Bruce, who sings Hey Baby. And he'd seen the Beatles, so when he came home, he was kind of trying to do something in that vein, and it totally failed. But I've always thought that those songs deserved another go round. I don't know. So, and it was very, very last minute. I think it was like the day or two before we did a recording session. I said, let's do one of these songs, and I just kind of wrote out the lyrics and the chords, and we ended up at the recording session having enough time to do all 4 of them, and nobody really knew the songs very well, and I always thought we'd put 1 on the album or 2, and I don't know, it just ended up working out. I love them, and I think they fit, but they're weird.
Yeah, no, they're great, and I'm completely unfamiliar with the originals, so to me they're like 4 brand new songs that I didn't know from before. So it's not like the Kiss one or the Bangles where it's like, ooh, I instantly recognize that one. Now, my last question about the cover songs, because I could not figure out where this came from. The song Taste the Soup, that's a co-write with Kim Shattuck. Where does that, like, I follow Kim Shattuck's music. Used to love the Muffs and all of her stuff. Well, bless you over there.
Oh, sorry.
Where does that song come from? Because I couldn't find it on any of my like Muffs records or Pandora's or anything. I couldn't find it.
You know the story?
I do.
Go ahead.
I hope I know it well. So Lisa and Kim, dad knew and knows them pretty well, and they wrote 2 songs for our first album. And
Oh,
ended
okay.
up not doing Taste the Soup. We ended up not choosing to have that on our first album. And then when it came time for the second, I think we thought it was a little weird. We didn't really get it. And then we listened again, and I really love that song. I think it's so fun. And we listened again, and we thought it's such a good moment to include this song. And so I think it's just for us. It hasn't been anywhere else.
When we were asking people to write songs for the first album, Kim was one of the first people I thought of, and one of my all-time favorite songwriters. She is just
Yeah, I love her. She's amazing.
Very simple little bit of a song, and we can talk of how to get along.
I didn't know she was sick at that point. She definitely was though, and I'd also asked Lisa, who was in that band Cub, to also write songs, and they got together and wrote these 2 songs and sent us a cassette. It was just like a ukulele and singing, and so we considered it, for the first album, but we just did that one. And so when it came time for the second album, we went back and I think Lisa has put out some demo versions of both of those songs, and you can find them on Bandcamp if you're curious.
Okay. Well, yeah, because I was just like, I'm looking through my Pandoras, I'm looking through the Muffs. I have one other group that she's in, and I was like, where is this song? Like I couldn't figure out the original. So that definitely
Poke Your
explains
Eye
it.
from the first album was written just for Juniper, and it
So
is
which one again?
Poke Your Eye Out is
Oh,
also,
okay.
it's also written by Kim,
That
and
kind of feels like a Kim Shattuck. Now that I know that, now I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
and just to have her write a song for my daughter is mind blowing. It's amazing.
Yeah, she was amazing. I was a huge fan, and
Maybe you think you're being funny, but your methods dig your grave.
Michael, besides being, I've dubbed you the musical director for Juniper for the band. Aside from being that, and you're working radio, what is your actual musical background? You talked about you've been in other bands and stuff. Do you produce other artists and that stuff too, or is that just your studio's just for you?
Yeah, just mostly for doing radio shows and doing some of my own music. Yeah, I don't know. I played in bands. I played at CBGB's when I was 16. And just always played in bands. Played in bands in high school. Played in bands in college, and then ended up getting signed to a record deal when I was relatively old, like I think 29 or 30, and had some good luck and got to tour around the world and stuff. But nobody knows who I am. But on the other hand, also very lucky, and so
Yeah, well, you made it out the other side.
'Cause he ain't there. Daddy's a square.
Now, have you guys ever done a live performance, or is this strictly a studio thing? And is it something you'd maybe like to try? And maybe not you 2 together, but maybe Juniper have something where you're performing these songs in front of a crowd, maybe more in front of your peers, or maybe it'd be a room full of old guys like me. But I mean, I don't know who would be there necessarily. What is that a possibility?
We did one live show right before the pandemic started, I think in December 2019. Really fun, great experience. I think we probably would have done more if COVID hadn't happened. I don't think it's really in the cards now, at least just because I just started college
Because
and
college, yeah.
such a, unusual time, and we don't live together anymore. So it's very different. But I'm not against it at some point in the future. And I love to perform. I love to sing. So it sounds exciting and amazing.
What are the future plans for the group? I mean, are we talking now that you're in college? You say you're not living together anymore. So does that mean it's pretty much just like Christmas break and summertime, and like that's going to be the way it goes? Or is the project on hold, or what are you talking about for the future?
we don't have a plan. I don't, and it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, hopefully these Harry Styles covers will come out. It wouldn't surprise me if one of us wrote a song and we were really moved to record that song in the same sort of style, or whatever the evolution is going to be of that. But it wouldn't surprise me either if that doesn't happen, because Juniper gets too busy with her real life or whatever.
Sure. I mean, and college is crazy. So there's so much going on at the same time. So the new single kind of came out of nowhere. Like, what was the impetus beside, I mean, instead of just saying, okay, well, we'll hold this out for the next record, in this day and age, the singles game is a little bit different than it used to be. What was the idea behind just, hey, let's just put this out now. Let's just do this.
I think part of it is that we are kind of uncertain about the future. So if we'll have enough songs eventually for another record and how that would look and how that would happen. So strike while the iron's hot and you have the piece done.
Yeah.
And I think I love this song, so I think it's great. And I just, so you know, I think when I'm approaching people, I'm like, I don't know if anyone cares about one song, so we're gonna find out, but we care about it. So
And she will try to change your mind, get you on her side, stand.
You know, Juniper, your dad has a lot of famous friends, and likely some of them maybe a bigger deal to me than to you. I don't know. You maybe known these people for a long time, so you're not easily impressed by you know, indie rock stars and whatever. People from like Bell and Sebastian, Yola Tango, etc. Groups that I listen to all the time. Any funny or interesting stories that you could relay about working with them, with any of these musicians?
I mean, it's very interesting. Part of the crazy thing about just the modern day world we live in is that a lot of our collaboration was over the internet and we didn't talk to them in person ever or play with them in a room ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think that was probably the majority of people we worked with. It was like sending back and forth clips, and we worked with these aren't famous people, but this is just an interesting thing that we did. We got a lot of musical pieces from Fiverr. Like,
Oh,
people
sure. Yeah,
not-
yeah. The freelancer
yeah,
type deal.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of unique ways to actually find music. So it makes it hard to have specific anecdotes about people because
yeah, and
they
a
were
lot of the
just-
overdubs are done when Juniper was in high school in the basement. People would come over here, bring their instrument, and Juniper would not, you know, or would come down and say, "I'm doing my homework, but thanks for playing on the record."
Yeah.
And yeah, that happens a few times. Yeah.
So it wasn't hanging out, you know, necessarily like watching them labor over the guitar solo or anything like that. That wasn't a part of it.
Not in the, I mean, we had a couple of days of recording sessions. A lot of Steve Goulding did a lot of drums. Crazy to see him just switch between things so quickly. That was really impressed me. So we did have a lot of time in the studio, but that was with a very specific group of people, a
Right.
couple different days. So I didn't see a lot of range.
Girls just want a boy to rest their head upon.
What would you say are your like musical influences? Who do you like to, if somebody, that's the most basic question you can ask an artist. Well, what are your influences? How would you answer that question?
It's a great question. I think very female dominated, female heavy. We were listening to Carole King in the car yesterday, and I was thinking, man, I would love to sing like her. Like, this would be great if my music sounded like this at all. So sort of that kind of tone, I think, is what I try to emulate.
Borrow my brand new dress, I swear that I don't mind.
I don't know when it would be, but I think it seems unlikely that we'll never work on anything again.
Right.
I don't know what
You
that
two
will
being
look like.
related, that means
Yeah,
it's
we spent a
not
lot of time together.
right.
Both love music. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, have you, besides the acapella stuff, Juniper, have you ever collaborated with anyone else sort of in your kind of peer group, or this is your main project and then you've got the school stuff on the side?
This has always been my main project, just because this was all of high school and I didn't do other musical stuff besides this. But I think I'm excited about the potential in college.
Right. Okay. So we're not ruling it out. There could be some other sort of, you know, band or something going along, because you said that you're influenced by a lot of female singers, and part of the reason why I think I was so into the album was because my sort of sweet spot is kind of like guitar oriented indie-ish music with a woman singer, and when those things mesh, it's just like, okay, here goes. This is like the stuff I like. It works I saw this group right here, Rat Boys, last night. They're from Chicago. Same thing, guitar-oriented, indie rock, woman singer, fantastic stuff. So I get it. And if you did front another group or whatever, I'd be into that too. I think it would be fantastic. It would be really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, you and people like you have been such a revelation to us, because there's no way to compete against the marketing budget of a huge label, but there's also no way to compete with good word of mouth. It's been such we were not expecting people like you to, Johnny Appleseed this thing around. And I'd say it's been more successful than we thought it would be. So thanks to people like you.
Well, that's great. And I'm glad that I could help in any way, because I do love the record. It is getting up to, that the countdown season or top 10 of the year. And I can say it's pretty safe to say it'll be in the top 10 for me. No doubt. That'll be in a later, video too, for sure. Cause it's just great. And I'm glad I can help out in any way.
Doll, baby doll. He always calls.
Just thank you so much. I mean, really, like my dad said, it's so exciting to, things like your video. It just makes you feel so appreciated and like you're successful when doing something cool. And that's awesome. It's really, really exciting for us.
Well, you are doing something cool. So there's no other way to frame that. It is a very unique record. I can't point to anything in 2023 that it sounds like. And I think your description, bubblegum garage pop, is literally the most perfect description of a sound, because every band you ask them, well, what do you sound like or whatever, and everyone struggles and or says something that doesn't sound like anyone could relate to it. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of the struggles for us, not really struggles, but when you say, okay, I've got a teenage girl singer record I want you to listen to, they think of, there's a very specific idea of what they think the music is going to sound like. And this is so not like that kind of music that, so it's nice. Yeah. So I don't know how you even get past that sort of prejudice that everybody has already. But yes, like you say, it's just really about listening at a certain point.
We'll wrap it up here. I do say that I hope you guys make more stuff, do more singles, more albums, because I would certainly like to hear it. And I'd be curious about what other cover songs you come up with, because so far the Go-Go's, the Bangles, Kiss, all of these other ones are just like, that's my record collection pretty much. And it works perfectly. And I do appreciate you guys taking the time. And again, any new stuff you have coming along, let me know like immediately. I'm on top of it.
We sure will.
Thank you
Yeah.
so